Garchen Rinpoche. 다음에 이와서 좋아하고 갔다 오는 날에 좀 파천 나동 삼지 집발에 남바 사제배 대바들 속에 조망 되니 당전지 가와 좋아하마다 발레 좀 돼서 못 돼. 따바 그런 게 나오게. 대럽들이 사지 탐지에 뭐는 가야 잡혀야 되나. 이제 요시는 좀 좋아하는 게 벌써 이제 가디는 처악한 걸 보는데 사파도 가다가 깊이 공만한 거 같더니 이만 이래더니 처악하다 같은 거야. 정말 보고 나는 게 그래. 무슨 파체를 나라에나 가다. 처악도 마디 발었어. 그래. 딱 dum에도 마디는 약골 도가 마디 받아 사리지. 도가 마디 받아 사그 나브레도 드리치니 요사리. 아니 지금 좋아요.
중년 먼저 봐요. 중년 먼저 봐.
리 dum에 무딘지. 약골이지. dum에 가야 지금 매전. 파파는 이거는 지금 dum에 마디 받아. dum에 어떻게 말이. 라운 배도 dum에 lep기요. dum에 지네 제 뭐가 탑 조시 봐야 되는데 나고 사주를 놓고 그래. 디저는 뭐 너무 기발쇼 너무 작게요. 진단들이 좋아하는 게 기발고 그래서 장글로 탑질을 모르는 좋아하다 봐 마이 좋아하다 봐 이게 진짜 이거를 방송되는 들이 좋아하들이 진구가 그래.
Today's topic will be the topic of impermanence and especially dying. In the Milarepa teachings yesterday, the inner meaning of those teachings, the actual meaning, is really one and the same. Once one has entered the teachings of Buddhism, one begins to contemplate the difficulty of obtaining a precious human incarnation, cause and effect. All the Buddhas have formed aspirational prayers saying, may all beings take death to heart. May we always contemplate death. And also the old Kadampa Geishas have formed aspirational prayers that may all beings each and every day contemplate death and impermanence. If we do not contemplate, like we mentioned before, we do not contemplate suffering, and we think that it is a good thing not to contemplate suffering. But then we are like pigs, not thinking about anything. And without choice and independence, we will have to experience suffering later on. So we need to know the method to prevent suffering through the Buddha's teachings. And that's the reason why the Buddhas have said, may all beings take death close to heart. In many temples and practice places all over, there is some written signs where it says death or impermanence. This is a reminder for us, so we continue to think about it.
담을게 기록 남아서 저를 데려다 끼와서 좋아를 말합니다. 좋아하면 누구죠? 답변은 다 로드지 자처리네요. 다 셔도들이 다 마셔버 탑지는 다 메인다 감다고 그들라서 봤더니 백동 제기가 때 꼬박을 했다니까. 오 마셔 사대를 봐 직당 내 지와 숨은 저가 요리지. 오래. 제배는 니마라는 샤소리 샤나들이 소리 말아 봤다. 니마 샤소리. 속에 차고 봐. 얘네 종들이 너 서로 통과들이 반도 서로 다 얘는 보고 빼지는 일이. 저는 제외 니마의 종들이 고바 강강 저와 다 얘는 보고 요리잖아. 들이 싸고 공부를 해서 사지.
Many people fear death. People who have not entered the Buddhist teachings or who may follow some other traditions do not have deep teachings on birth and death. Sometimes when people get like 70 or 80 years old and they don't, they apply all sorts of methods in order not to die. They take medicines, they take injections, they try hard to prevent death. But actually that's foolish actions because everybody eventually will have to die. Once one is born, one is bound to die. It is like the sun rising in the east. It at all times goes to the western side. It never stops. It always comes closer to the western side. In the same way, from the time we are born, we come closer to our death.
제가 되는 데다 양대한 자세라네. 자세라는 건 강식이 말이. 양 뒤에는 착각신데 신앙. 들이진 좋아하고 혼자 시작하면 오지를 찾게. 저시 망보지 잡나. 이 책을 따와서 된지도 나오는 책을 따와서 오지니 오지 동카탄데 진영 그랬나. 저시 맞잡을 양지 책 총총 저기 가래 쉬요 말이. 기사거든요. 자세라는 놈이 이 동치 좋아들이 좋아들 오래 동치 좋아
It is important to again and again contemplate the 37 Bodhisattva practices. And this is the only practice that I'm truly familiar with. It is important to explain each of the verses. When one then later reads the root verses, the root words in the little book, then one will remember the explanation, the elaboration on their meaning, and one will really understand. If one doesn't give a commentary on its meaning, then one will not understand. So I will give an explanation on some of the verses of the 37 practices, and the first verse is verse number 4.
There are 상식이 좋아마다 레지나 갖다 참여. 오, 되게 쉽게요. 참여 뛰어서는 좋아 무시 직장 요마저 진거 요마. 그때 말이와 될 때 탑 강렬들이 사지 좀 사지에 저기 송내 강렬들. 다고 선생이 직디는 상매들이 마다 바꾼다. 근데 나중에 책지는 상매마다 바꾼다. 어래. 근데 야고 주지 저돌 상매마다 바꾼다. 이제 세부 쪽으로 되는. 상모 당신 대지는 대요고도 상모 당나. 대비 지서 보다 대제보다 상모 레벨은 거요. 상모지 상모당. 나도 그렇지. 나도 지는 나도 잖아. 들이 상모도 용거요. 아니. 빼나 다다 보답들 로브라데 통에 다 로족제 놓는 들이 상모잖아. 오. 당한 강과 공고도 보다 공고도 얘는 가이제고도 다음에 내가 제고도 다음 배샤사고도 들이 남년 집에 뭐 홀로가 이거는 들이 담보 뭐라 진동 들이 강과 진동 들이 배샤 진동 다다 남년 집 밤이를 내가라 저한테 강의사 못하는 쌍놈지 송요래 오 특히 참아서대로 뭐라도 가봐도 들이 보고 보라서 뭐 특히 체도 자와도 자차원도 생을 차네. 이거 그래가 저기 원래 때 마셔는 보고 같이 싸먹자와니 이거 말이 싸먹자와니 용띠라고 요 말이 용띠 말하면 내가 제일 내가 맞는데 다 빼놓고 메인을 가야면 시리지 나만나 보티니 장군이 시랍에 맨날 저기 맨날 체지 대타와 동탁고 요 말이 대타게 띠모 제베라 다다든 저하면 림바데 띠모게 자시에 베나 저와 제일 가래도 저와 마디는 가래도 베나 왜 자자는 이 체지 사와야 되지 싸모다니 들이 요거 요래 나타내 깔게 공간을 제주들이 싸모다는 경도 장싸모다는 들이 데려드니까 저하면 봐 서로 쏘고 봐
When we talk about death and impermanence, then many say, I know about death, of course everybody has to die, but one doesn't really contemplate death and impermanence. The Buddha has explained the teachings on death and impermanence, first in terms of the impermanence of the outer universe, then secondly the impermanence of the inner sentient beings, and the impermanence of occurrences such as the four seasons and so forth. Death and impermanence is something that we mentally must fabricate. It is a contemplation that we need to engage in, and then ultimately we come to a conclusion and we think, if this is the case, then this is what needs to be done. So it is something that one needs to mentally fabricate. For example, a child who just graduates from school, maybe at the age of 18, begins to mentally contemplate what needs to be done. One needs a house, one needs a car, one needs some money, one needs to find work in order to get money, and day and night one thinks about then how one can get that house and how one can get that car and that money, and then one engages in efforts to achieve all that. In the same way, we need to contemplate death and impermanence. In the same way as we do it when we are concerned about the mundane concerns. If it doesn't arise in our mind, if we do not go through that thought process, then we will not acquire any qualities. One will just not do anything, one will not acquire any education, one may begin to take drugs or drink alcohol, and one will not increase one's wisdom. If one spends one's life in such a way, then this belongs to the domain of ignorance. In the same way, if one doesn't contemplate death, that also belongs under the domain of ignorance. So just as we have to contemplate the tasks that we have to perform in a mundane sense, we also need to contemplate on how death and dying functions.
Tene tere tine tata di kontoke malaka bonnani samyi na di malaka bongo tata anjang jina na anjang jina na inji tolke maangpala pop tere logo mi anjang jina na sanchiwa bada wal por chama jina na gore ore tere logo mareti no labreti.
And also in Milarepa's 100,000 songs, there is one song that extensively talks about death and impermanence, and that song can be found on page number 203 in the big black book in the English translation. Rinpoche says today I will not go into great detail of that.
아랑 죽고 저한테들 갖고 요래. 때는 선루지 직진을 담대가 봐. 상로단나. 너지 직진 디지털을 배려서 담아서 답을 사강 되네요. 다다다 나올 통째 통고요래. 니마 나와라서 사강 됐다 그래. 그럼 저게 나올 통째 지금 통고요래. 얘네는 사지 동지들은 디지털을 링제를 디지털은 답을 사강 됐다니. 사야 장미 봐요. 어디서? 때려놓다 담아서 받쳐 지금 까마다 통으로 까마다고 참 사가지. 내려가 다다 강한 요리들 반상감을 요리다. 중앙가에 돌아. 롱도 바른 거 뜯기 요리다. 반상감을 요나. 사강대 빼놓고 무슨 사도독 직당. 사강 지원이 즉말이지. 사도독 주종제 이렇게 되지. 나야 아주 좁잖아. 탈라기로 사도독제. 이제 제거를 하는 게 이제. 어쨌든 더블리가 사강들 내 말이라 말해서 못하나. 이게 사강들이 마고 반란권을 로요래 돼서 못하나. 무슨 나파리 보다 치려 때는 까마까마로 톡 잡는 톨로도 와. 자샤를 톨로도 와. 그래서 까마까마 톡을 담는 때는 까마까마로 톡을 담아 포도로 와. 그리 밖에 자샤를 오지. 더블리 사강들이 톨로도 오지. 무슨 아주 톨하고 올라오는 말이야. 저렇게 가시는 좋고 털고 그래야지. 가시는 좋고 털고 말해야지. 어들이 저렇게 돼서 연기 쳐보래. 사실 가능이 선도지 죽기만 다 봐야 하고 올라오고 선도지 죽기 쳐보면 되라 되다. 유죄리 세무 담아다나. 다다 잡을 사강에 촉과자 응아자 갑기자 갑도 나도 좀 촉과자 그럴 때 내가 좀 토종을 싸우던 대상으로는 세비도 초와 가리도 지금 나불는 거 다다 가리사고도 강상고도 나불는 거 사람 토야래 있으면 세비 지고 영모로도 차로로 배 샘들 코 영모로 배는 샘들 나불는 게 요상들아 다시 요미 가는 상부 요머리 야 나불는 거 사람도 마음으로는 토야래 되시라 제 세비들은 싸먹던 샘을 배신 이 세와나지 때다 초와에 물어봐 습사고다. 대주 가리리. 다 말을 찍찍한 때도 이 세계로 가. 서로디 죽지는 싸우는 마다 방법으로. 답을 근데 딱 봐면은 따뜻한 것도 용칼 한바 될라도 내가 나서 버 따뜻을 빼. 충충 이런 것도 좀 받지 모르래. 나는 라퍼도 빼. 아체도 지가 따뜻 빼 자주 모르는 받지 모르라. 나니 모닥탕을 잡은 뭐킹으로 라코스티가 라코스티 가르치 알아서 근데ズバ들이 그래 저도 샘ズバ데 뛰는데 솔직히 죽기는 맞다 들이 싸움으로 아니 장에 샘데 지고 양으로 보라 이 싸움 싸움 죽기 니밥 통제래 생각 됐게 그래지
So the outer universe is in the nature of impermanence. It has no substance, and also oneself is non-different. When one thinks about all the universes, also this world from which we can see the moon and other planets is impermanent and will come to complete destruction. The Buddha has said there is an infinite amount of other world systems. We can see some of it at night when we look in the sky and see the stars. Amongst them are many different planets. When we take the essence of one of those planets or worlds and a piece of earth, then they are same in nature. When one crumbles them, they just become nothingness, and they are in the nature of impermanence. They are conditioned phenomena, and all conditioned phenomena are in the nature of permanence. So when one contemplates in this way, one knows that at some point also our own world will become completely destroyed in the end. We just do not know exactly when this will happen. Some scientists say it will happen sooner, some say it will happen later. In any case, the Buddha has said the outer universe will come to complete destruction, for it is a compounded phenomena which is in the nature of impermanence. So when one contemplates in this way, thinking, all things are impermanent, are compounded phenomena, and will be destroyed, then we see our small fixations that we have to our country and the wars that we are engaging in. If we think all that will be destroyed, will be completely gone one day, what feeling will arise within one's mind? it is then as though one is awoken from a dream, the dream of ignorance. This feeling will arise within one. If one understands that everything and the whole world is in the nature of change, is not permanent, then one also understands that those things that one has a fixation to, like one's houses, one's countries and so forth, are considerably small compared to the whole universe, and still we have a strong fixation to them. For example, I myself have a strong fixation to my prayer wheel. One time we had a car accident, and I didn't even think about my own head, but I thought about may nothing happen to the prayer wheel. I could only think about the prayer wheel. So this is the little mental fixations that we have. But then we contemplate that the whole outer universe is impermanent and will come to a complete destruction at some point, and this will widen or open up our mind. And then there is the impermanence of the inner sentient beings, as the Buddha has taught. In actuality, even in this world, infinite amounts of beings, countless beings, are constantly dying without interruption. It is like a lawn mowing machine. When you mow the lawn, then constantly, every instant, somebody is sort of cut off. So at any moment and continuously, somebody is dying. Even in one country, every day thousands of people are constantly dying. It is just that we don't know about it. What we know about is about those that we love, our friends, and those that we are close to, our acquaintances, and we are afraid of their death. And when we hear about their dying, then a strong feeling arises within us because we have known that person. But in actuality, beings are dying constantly in every single moment, at all times. And moreover, in this world, there are countless causes that can cause our death. Therefore, the circumstances which lead to our death are uncertain. There are countless circumstances which lead to our untimely death, such as death through fire, or water, or robbers, or other adverse conditions, starving and so forth. there are many conditions which constantly can lead to death. Also in this way contemplate impermanence.
근데 답이 지을러 상태는 맞다 방법 봐서 그래서 사지 종진제 따위는 다 톱의 상제에는 끝에 뒤 주법거에 쳤더니 매일 쳤더 패면 제가 저 지와시는 저와시기 오래 라마 교육신이 저 톱간이 되나 각들 꾸리지 제로 오래 샘들 제셔니까 하고 오잖아요. 내가 내 천성사는 중제되고 그러는데 현로고요리 야포단을 해야지. 동아이제도 별로 그 중제되고 별로 이거 수 저리 야포시 바도로送了 야포는 누가가 야포다를 봐. 그래서 사천명을 좋아하지. 야들나 말은 딱 공가 말아. 그래서 가봐 야들나 농항제 니는 류전 농항 남신 공부 벌써 와. 지들 보고 가봐지. 농항 무슨 야야 배사 되잖아. 라자 되게 배세도 아토라왕나 뭐지 딱 벌써 되는 거라. 좀 좋고요 말. 류전 농항 따버리 something 유리야 포트리 먹어라.
Then there is the impermanence of the holy beings. Although their mind is the Buddha, their body has emanated, for example, in the realm of the humans. And also their bodies are not beyond cessation. Although they may have been great lamas, great accomplished masters, at some point they will also display impermanence and leave their bodies. Of course, realizing that the mind is beyond birth and cessation. This body composed of the 4 elements is just something that we have borrowed. Like it is said in the 37 practices, consciousness, the guest, will cast aside the guest house of the body. It is as though we have paid a rent for a guest house. If we had all power over it, then we would be able to keep it. But we cannot keep it. It is just like a guest house that we will have to leave.
제는 다 마보지 요래 대탐치 하시게 다 이제 바꿀 찾지는라 공장을 샤롱들라 되니 내가 거도 볼 담바예를 대자 거울이 이제 잡아 제 매와야라 다 대도 없는 거 벌이 대로래 이제 거는 내 상황 당로 소소소소데 저한테 받치면 조고 요래 생생의 인상으로 상로 당나 시그레 지나 가리 피그레 해지 별로 가다 뵙기 기적에 좀 좋아지래 강시나 야 kül제 양도 쌈나 비치아도 가리래지 비치기는 좋아 양도 뒤져들래지 좋아지나 가리 피그레지 좋아지나 당부 출을 좀 보자 좋아진 거로 해지 아주 냠이 주로 제베지야 좋아지는 제기 오래지 타마 사제 도벌지야 좋아지는 제기 오래지 타마 유미도 람송 재미도 봐도 산지를 와 내가 계속 보지 좋아지는 거 오래서 들이싸고 따라 좋아지지도 같은 쳐버리셔 들이 제리싸고 좋아지 개인도 도지 디스는 좀 좋게 야라니까 담존이 가와인지 이제 지 올해 야라도 내나 담존이 가와 돌아 제비인데 니 거기 돌아야 되다 마오라고 그래 뭔가 많이 알까 인지 단 좋아돼 니 이쪽 빨리 말이나 좋아 충충을 내려고 좋아돼 니 이쪽 빨리 갑자기 장미 받았던 저거 요리 현재 내기 지선 나그 요리 다 세는 유무과면 생기 뜻당 요 말이 유무과대 요리 성대 상황 매번 보니까 저게 농구 요리 유무과도 빼 하టర్ 가오리 상태 양녀도 좋아만 다 맞지는 이 사족 생기 건 올해 빠들이 장조래 뭐 몰라고 들이 제보래 이거 맞다 버티 좋게 단전이 거와도 뭐라 좋아만 다 맞지 인도는 좀 피고서
Some people may have read some about the preliminary practices in the jewel ornament of liberation or the words of my perfect teacher or other scriptures about the preliminary practices. And if not, you can also consult the 100,000 songs of Milarepa. We need to cultivate this thought of death and impermanence again and again, so that fear arises of this thought of dying. What is the benefit of doing that? One time a disciple asked a Kadampa Geshe if of all those Dharma practices, one were to be practiced, which one would be the most important one? And he replied, this most important one that you should always remember is the contemplation on death. In the beginning, depending on the contemplation of death, we enter the Dharma teachings. Then in the middle, depending on the contemplation of death, we engage in practice with great diligence. And in the end, depending on the cultivation of contemplation of death, we establish the causes for attaining Buddhahood. So therefore, the beginning, the middle, and the end all have arisen due to the contemplation of death. Therefore, when one contemplates in such a way, one would think this contemplation of death is truly precious. One needs to contemplate that again and again. When you get up in the morning, you necessarily must think about the difficulty of obtaining this precious human incarnation with all its freedoms and endowments. Especially if you don't want to get up, you could think, I shouldn't waste this opportunity. When I'm sleeping, I am just wasting more time. It is better to get up early in the morning, since I have obtained that precious human incarnation. And in the evening, since sleep and death are the same, you necessarily should contemplate death and impermanence, and think that in this moment, an infinite amount of sentient beings throughout the three spheres are dying in any moment. And once they have died, they follow along the karmas that they have accumulated. All sentient beings are afflicted by negative emotions. And once one has negative emotions, one lacks independence and thus has to experience suffering. And it is indeed very difficult to free oneself of these afflictive emotions. That should arouse bodhicitta in one's mind. Then recite a refuge prayer and a dedication prayer each and every day. So each and every day you must remind yourself of the precious human incarnation in the morning and death and impermanence in the evening.
대단히 좀 타고 매력 가는 애들이 파츠 저때 랩고 요리 저때 같은 연구 요리 때나 아래 대답이 말에 좀 벌었네 마고 쏘고 내가 때나 네가 가르쳐 이거죠 오 소소 짝짝보자 뭐라 일 맞잖아 오 당한 저때 하면 랩송 당한 저때 해도 내가 답지 매도를 막 게임을 올해 대단하다 때문에 처음부터 양강이 아주 긴 오래지.
Also the causes which will cause our death are uncertain. Some die early in the wombs of their mothers. Some die just as they are born. Some die just after they are born. It is uncertain when we are going to die. If such things happen, then it is due to the karma that we have accumulated in previous lifetimes. If in previous lifetimes we have killed and abused others, then in this lifetime we will experience more frequent illness, shorter lifespan, inharmonious relationships with companions. All the suffering arises from these actions. If one has not engaged in those actions, one will experience fewer illness and longer lifespan. For example, if one has not engaged in the action of sexual misconduct in previous lifetimes, one will have a positive, a good body, physical condition. One's lifespan will be longer, maybe 70, 80 years, some even get to 100 years. These are all results of positive actions accumulated in previous lifetimes. For example, talking about lifespan, in Tibet, if one gets to 50 years, one already is considered to be aged. Here, the physical conditions are a little bit better, and then maybe as one gets 60, 70, one begins to age. But basically, when the body begins not to function very well, for example, in my own case, when I reached the age of like 50, I had great physical difficulty with my knees and so forth. When those signs happen, then we can take that to be a sign of death. Milarepa has taught about that extensively in his songs. When we find white hair and wrinkles on our skin, we can take them all to be signs of our own death, like a flower withering away. We should remember death and impermanence again and again.
다 로 요보 답지는 나 용보에서 대야로 말이 올해 라로 총사 마부 쳐요 대삼이죠 오 다다 쇼하는 말로 총리스 대는 나 마셔가도 너무 고도 다나 가지시 하고 말이지 상로당 될지네 아기 따고 습지 상로당 레지드는 정체 올해 개바 답지는 다 무슨 나 저때 차례지 니마 religion 되는 말 원래 루타 good road 니마 religion 관계 거리 스피드 배봐요 말이에요 세 동의 본데 뭐 저게 저게 뭐 하고는 딱 좋아라 동의 매로 탑 좋고 말이에요 저게 좀 시계를 거기 동의 딱 처음부터 빼고 다음은 저 가지고 그래도 계작해요 봐 올해가 쇼보고 이제들이 마음이 강날 크지 이렇게 계작해요 님보요말 샤렌저랑 매가 탑대로 주사 못 가고 오지 이 사제 탑대로 주지 보고 쏘는 샤렌저랑 매가 탑 가이고 이제 땅에 다리에 라래 이제 뭐지 싸와 가르치는 거죠 다 레드비 마음고 숨고 이제 이제 상지바데 너무 빨리요 너무 빨리 강이 좀 나들이 좀 나들이 이걸 가리피게 되다 이피를 놓고 너보다 이피에서 좀 땅이 이피 가리서 못 온 거지나 어따잖아 아마요 아주 아마 그 피다 소리지 아마 피다도 강에 잡고 저 견데 왜 다다 진정도 원래 초기는 초를 패고 아마도 강에 가지 잡는 초라는 더 보고 강에 가지 잡는 강에 가리도 아메 제 나이 쳐라고 잡으랬더니 오늘이 아마디가를 가게 잡요리 선들이 다다 아마디 가와요 아마디 동에 가루요 다들 아마는 가르치고 그랬습니다. 다 말로 이래도 소왔다 버리지 아마디는 말로 지내도 다 제가 대주 제거요 무슨들이 톱고래 제가 몇 번 제가 제톱고래 다 사실 쇼가를 나중에 제가 공요래 그래 내가 때는 저도 제라고요 주풍 지역에 또 자와 상속성을 좀 사실 정지들 같은 말 드리자고 쇼한테 성을 봐도나 단지에 봐 제가 요봐 다 뒤탑제 거래지.
Many young people think I am young and maybe don't have to die soon, but still that is also not certain. Many young people die, and you can think some actually died that are much younger than myself. Then one would contemplate. I don't know when the time has come when I will have to die. So then one should set out and contemplate refuge, bodhicitta, contemplate the workings of karma, cause and effect. Then the older people could actually think at all times, my time of dying has already arrived. At each time I could die. Many people suffer of the thought of death. They think, I am suffering so much, I will have to die. They cry out when they have to go to hospital. But that has no essence. There is no benefit in doing that. One needs to seek a method that liberates from that suffering. And what is the method that liberates from that suffering? The fear of death. What is the root of fear? This is elaborated in the teachings of karma, cause and effect. The root lies in our afflictive emotions and originally springs from our self-fixation. And what is the antidote against that self-fixation? It is giving rise to the altruistic mind. Thus it is said, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So when one asks you, do you have a mother? Then the other person will say, yes, I do. So has your mother benefited you? One doesn't really remember, but then one thinks about the hardships that oneself is engaging in for one's children, and then one thinks, my mother has cared for me just in this way, and my mother has engaged in so many difficulties and hardships. It is really true. What can I do to benefit my mother? What can I do to alleviate her suffering? Then one could practice Chenrezig and recite Chenrezig's mantra. Then when one thinks in such a way, love has arisen within one's mind. And then when one dies, it is this love that one will take with one instead of self-clinging. This is something that I always say. The root of the 84,000 aggregates of Dharma teachings lies in the altruistic mind, which is the method to dispel our self-clinging.
그리 되는 다 무슨 좋아 것을 법감이니 그러나 저때 다다 저도 내좀들이 약고 본 상신지 건 사이 제를 나서 다 탑마모 상태 어래 진난이 다다라 니 가서 사송지 어래 챈들에서 막는 바나 그때들이 챈들에서 막는 바나 그러면 자꾸 들어서 그러면 자꾸 맞추나 사이에 보면 자서 내가 갖다 놓고 하실라니 그러다가 무슨 되게 작지는 독지 세번 내로 양이 제재되더니 다 사인 처와 별을 받고 너무 사적성 남아 이리 줘 이거래 즉 제가 상등지 쪽 이 빠져 되니까 세부대로 보여서 쪽 보고 이렇게는 네 그 뒤에가 다다다 배도체네 감랬지네 고속 상승지를 떼네 네 유노가 세담 차도 들어서 상승 지식이 좀 제가 좀 그리 때로 통담을 드릴 때는 아무래도 세부대로 나중에 내려오고서는 유노보다 나빠도 속도 짓다 무엇이 좀 대답지 원래 모실 거트바 대답지 만세와 드리게 답변 드리다 되네 이 진도가 그걸 답게 보다를 제더니 생각이 제고래
And so as a preparation for a time when death then really comes, we should habituate ourselves to the contemplations on karma, cause and effect, and bodhicitta, or other methods such as the visualization of the deity in the generation stage practice, or like we said yesterday, the torch that leads us through the next lifetime is the realization of the clear light luminosity of our mind. Through practices such as Mahamudra or Dzogchen, by which we realize the nature of our mind. Then, when the time of death actually has come, it is the twofold bodhicitta that will protect us. First, it is the conventional bodhicitta of love and compassion which will protect us, and secondly, it is the realization of mind's nature. It is clear light luminosity that will protect us. Therefore, at this point, we need to apply great effort in our practice. First, depending on conventional bodhicitta, which is love and compassion, we defeat afflictive emotions such as anger or jealousy. And secondly, through maintaining mindful awareness, we increase our awareness and we recognize concepts and afflictive emotions upon arising with mindful awareness, and in this way we increase our awareness. We will be able to liberate those concepts and afflictive emotions arising and will not be bound by them. So at this point we need to apply many methods, and we ultimately also need to encourage others to engage in life practice.
대대로 가고 초학을 가고 사반 숙제대 다다는 소리 호와를 가고 제베 도다 인시 자세라는 소원이 여행도 잡히 도제라서 어째가 지고 요나야 제제와 단지 담제를 제와에 제그 내고 해변나 어래 뭐가 내가 제와에 요거 강의는 사지 좀 되더라 부모를 지지지고 도지 변나 부모를 지지지고 부모들을 뭐지 진나와나 또 다들 부모 용어는 맞아 있어라. 이 부모를 지지 되게 그랬더니 강수가래 되나. 사실 깔아지나. 직진 감들이 집어도 그다음에 시 다들이 저 안만 토어지도 뒤에서 강대가 쫓아 보면서 사실 시험감이 여기 딱 좋아서 마도서 예수가 쫓아 보면서 그들이 사실 좀이라 하시는 데라 사실 가짜요 그래라 빼대다 다다는 속에 원래 몇 번에 पछि 와들 강아 지와요 봐대 대다वर 만나 과다냐 세비도 파마마데 깨끗매 자치 지와 치고 강아 지와요 지와 깜이잖아 이 hin지랑 친 바지 대요 말이 hin지 쳐보지 뭐가 몇 신지대 hin지 짱마 차대요 대 많이 받다는 즉기 감단이 차대오나 즉기 감단을 한 거지 hin지랑 친 바지 다도 좀 제거도 니지대라 저거 차대나 들이 세대 대는 결대리지 대가 좋고요 말이 라면 콜로 쪽으로 이제 와요 좀 자세라는 소 호종 호외랑 좀 덮고 말이 파마 니지 담긴데 제가 막 가져 특별히 변나 그 마지막에 보고는 시리가 보고도 되잖아 또 세대 보고들이 좀 강노노를 피쪽쪽 말와 보고지요나 저들이 시도를 보고도 되거든 와 다 마시라도 보고도 안 들어 상거와 담을 봐나 대지 세대 보고도 저대로 세대 보고들이 차시들 이거 보고들은 누구래마도 강력 표현 말이 저 타마토비로 요 말와 샘트가로 보고를 자차를 와 대 많이 바꿔래 다들 몇번 매번 생기게 돼 참말 생긴 삼실 피고 우선 몇번 매번 생기게 되나 찌감이들이 라면 따와지서 때문에 예담들 라지서 어래 그리 때문에 어래 생기 담지 삼바다 문제라서 봐 나도 탑이 뒤 좋고 요래 대를 들더니 마차바 마이바다리 거기 저세라는 소모 너무 차지매 봐. 체지 타초 봐죠. 오, 나 가시 싫어. 나 가시 싫어. 파마 자기 열지 잠깐 너데라서 뭐 강야 주임고 다니는 속에 특치구데 뭐래. 이런 조건 자기 이뭐매 매번 저번 너데라 이뭐매 제가 나 리드가 가는 이뭐매 서로 따라서 세타지 지금 오, 대마 셔버들 밤도 단 셔버들 에이도 보이고요. 뭐래. 셔버들 무슨 나쁠 까라. 근데 당고 위주 사이카 쳐라 탐소. 디감이더니 루제 사이카도 쳐라 탐소나. 근데 스타일을 그거 매 봐. 쇼매 봐. 야랑부터 당도 뭐 봐. 물라리 봐가 손에 사야지 또 당간 게. 또 phân도 버. 나노도 니 소라. 다대장 나한테는 또 하고 내가 하고 세다가 타는 작도 필요 없고 리즈 사이칸 다다니 철atan 보라 학소아 대체대래 대체대래샤 지가부터 이게 관한 차로는 이제 자세라는 데 세면도 하만 자신이라고 그냥 맞춰
So at the time when we will have to die, we need to have cultivated love and compassion. There is no samsaric friends or families which can provide us with any protection. In fact, if our love is defiled by self-clinging, it will only cause harm and no benefit. The love that we need to cultivate is the love free from a referential point. In the sutra requested by the jewel-bedecked disciple of the Buddha has said that all the worldly companions, friends and relatives, and even powerful worldly gods cannot provide you protection when you die. It is only these three jewels which will provide you with protection. It is therefore the non-referential love that we need to cultivate. That is that first we take the love that we feel for somebody, and then we expand this love until it reaches all sentient beings through contemplating that all sentient beings, vast like the sky, have been my parents in one or the other lifetime. In this way one expands one's love, and then great compassion arises. This great non-referential, non-concept bound compassion arises, then this is pure compassion. On the other hand, in an ordinary sense, if we feel compassion for our friends and relatives, that this is compassion defiled by self-fixation, and this type of compassion will not protect our mind. As it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, all those worldly gods and relatives cannot provide us any protection. For example, in an ordinary sense, when one has a child and this child were to die, then one would only think about one's own child and think one would have lost one's child. One has a strong attachment to the child, and this in fact is not beneficial but very harmful for the child, because there is no aspiration to gain liberation. Non-conceptual or boundless compassion means to want to benefit all sentient beings. Ideally, one would recall those sentient beings from within the state of the view. Or if one cannot do that, then one can remember the hidden deity. Or one can contemplate love and compassion directed towards all sentient beings. And therefore in the 37 Bodhisattva practices it says, long associated companions will part from each other, wealth and possessions obtained with effort will be left behind. In the end, when we have to die, then our parents, all our possessions, our money that we have acquired will not seek any protection. They have no essence whatsoever. When the time of dying has come, then we will have to go. In the beginning, the earth element dissolves into the water element. Then one's body cannot move anymore. One cannot sit up. One cannot get up easily. Like Milarepa has said, when you first you sit down like a sack that has been cut through. Secondly, then the way, to give two examples, the way is you get up is like you say, like I'm pulling on a stake. Rinpoche says I am the best example for that. If you look at me, already the earth element is beginning to dissolve into the water element. Those are all signs of death. Therefore, take the 37 practices to heart and don't cultivate a strong craving for long associated companions.
Jadi cuma mela terpeta, saya kan kalau cuma mela terpeta lah, tak ada gagi tapi, macam tu baca baca, nangkau cuma tu kah, ni baca orang kamu cah, nak kamu cah cuma mela terpeta, jadi juga boleh, cuma mela terpeta lah, sedang lucu macam kaca lah semua, kamu semua, kah kamu cah, cah kamu cah jadi leh. 아직도 조금 어렵잖아. 근데 매일弄了 特别 매일弄 特别 되니까 오늘 통통 차는 거리. 뭐 그러면 나고서 보고서 야 웃기다고 봐. 다 차례 여기弄 매일 弄了 特别 원래. 근데弄 나발 18 튼.弄 나발 18 당연히 싫어 그러거든요. 원래. 그리 다 깜빡 라빠 탑에서도 독도 원래 독도 그리 나도 뭐를 봤대 탑이 차서지 다음에 되니 나나 방황 담을 차야를 지감이더니 다 남게 나와 탑을가더니 동 깔람샤 나와 깔람샤 그리어래 알래 당마 지와리 되더니 팔에 덮어 찔래 대 말에 말에 덮어 놨다지 알래 제가 깔람말람 미차네 지감이더니 깔람샤도 세상을 보고 탐진가 말람샤도 차가 보고가 대니가 반이더니 제밥에 봐왔다 니감때 충충 잘 끌어오래다 공양이 있잖아 대사마 니감에 하고 요래 니감에 또 충충 잘 끌어오래 아고 깔람데 잘 가시게 시가 놓고도 탐념이 뭐야 깔랑 나무 스티비 나와 사다고 살고도 거기 시에도 말람도 있다고 다들 깔랑 잡기로 해 원래 말람 잡기도 차도 와가니 원래 근데 대기진이 다 나타서 제 마음에 와 니 토고 차는 거래 원래 제가 좋다 니그 감이 다모 파니 맞서 말람이 그러라 말람 그 지서 깔랑살 깔람지도 말람살 말람지도 나람살 근데 제 마음에 맞자 이 뭐라 제로로 그래 대사다 무슨 거든 사님 제비제 라빠차 그거를 다다 총총 잡으러가 마로 주도 보면 다 되게 당근 말람 정도 다 되게 잡으러 왔다가니 빠쳐와는 게 상미적으로 네.
So first the earth element dissolves into the water element. Then the water element dissolves into the fire element. When that happens, then our bodily fluids begin to dry out, such as our saliva and our nose, our eyes. Everything becomes dried out. This is the next sign of death. Then after that, the fire element dissolves into the wind element. A sign of that happening is that one's breath will become shorter, like many Tibetan people in Tibet experience. That is a sign of being very close to death. When then the wind element dissolves into the consciousness, then we really die. Then our legs and hands become stiff, and we lose all our radiance. Then the inner dissolution begins. The inner appearances of death begin. The white appearance, the red and the black appearance. The white appearance is when the semen of our father is descending down. The red appearance is when the blood drop of our mother is descending up. When we have the white appearance, then the concepts of anger come to a cessation. During the red appearance, the concepts of attachment come to a cessation. And after that, as we move into the black appearance, we fall unconscious. It is just like the sleep state. When one is an experienced practitioner, one understands this process of dissolution. Also, when we fall asleep, we first experience the white experience or appearance. That is when the clear light luminosity of the mind appears to us. Then the red appearance, when all the concepts of attachment cease, and then we come to the black appearance, which would be similar to falling asleep, and then the dream state comes to a cessation. So first, as we fall asleep, we have the white appearance, then we have the red appearance, and then we come to the black appearance, the dream comes to an end, and we fall into an unconscious state. If one practices, for example, when we practice the 6 yogas of Naropa in the dream yoga, it is exactly that we are training in this recognition of the dissolution stage. Now we can practice in small, like with small examples. Later, when we die, it is a very gross dissolution. If one trains in such a way, then there will be no fear of that. So one of the practices of the 6 yogas of Naropa is the dream yoga practice, where one trains in the following way. One first maintains mindful awareness throughout one's day. One recognizes, one is aware of all the concepts, afflictive emotions and delusions, confusions arising throughout the day. And through this recognition, they will be rendered powerless. Then one maintains this mindful awareness as one goes over to the dream state. Then one attains the ability to apprehend the dream state. If one is able to apprehend the dream state, then later on, after one has died, one will be able to recognize this state also in the Bardo after one has died. That is then the state where all our old karmas and propensities will be activated, although our body has come to a cessation and we experience the same types of suffering impelled by afflictive emotions. But if in the Bardo state one recognizes those appearances, then immediately one will find liberation. Then it is like waking up from a dream. So in the 6 yogas of Naropa, one trains in the dream yoga, one also trains in the Bardo, and one another practice is the practice of the illusory body.
teni tata kalam balam naram desok kami setang topa subjo sokson kalam kalanika docha topa jike sheni malanika tabok topa deje naram chana ta treba mera kami teni ga ro yore ga suna te ga suna kami tata ni topu sarate ni topu sarate treba mera kami tata jeji de topu yore jeji chokse bona te leptone te Bardo neese mare treba mera cha topu yore mare te lamsang teni tata 사자 쪽으로 또 빠지면 나와고 지 남이 제방이가 잡아서 독보에서 됐지 봐요. 저기 바도 담보 죽어서 상계로 그래. 거기다 가야 다다랑 즉 상계는 발포들이 말해야 돼. 바도 담보니 파대요. 와라 바도 담보니 상계에서 바도 담보 죽어서 상계. 저리 여기서 마법 같은 나 탑에 제가 매바 차로 어 따뜻한 이 독발이 전이 세도 이 라방 세도 그 말이들이 강바요 락바요들이 락방벌들이 매는 이 세부터 양자판이 곡들이 저기 그래 나는 저기 딱 세도 라방 세대서 세대를 그래 라방 세요 그래 근데 그지라 보다 냥아요 되더니 이 독고 차도는 답이들이 또 답이 야만 세판이 그래 양이 요리면 뭐 참아지 딱딱 들이 양이 요리만 참체나 아니 양나 들이지 또 참체 파스는 다음에 돌아지 말아 때문에 양이 강바요 라바요 또 막 탈라 요들 봐 무슨 엄만 예스 그냥 성공 거서 니도 더 보러 와 보통 더 니도 더 어디들 당하로서 예 오죽 좀 니도 더 보러 이거 바라지 거든 타는 역시가 없다. 이제 밤에는 그리 오르라. 제발로 매야 돼 진짜다. 제발요나 따지도 바로 담보는 상기를 그래. 제발에는 따지니 말 바로와. 다시 차례. 다시 해야 돼. 다고 대시 되들이 다시 해. 나 답수 좀
So there are the three appearances, the white, red and black appearances. In the first one, the 33 concepts of anger come to a cessation. In the second one, the 42 concepts of attachment come to a cessation. And in the third, the 7 concepts of ignorance come to a cessation. Then one falls unconscious and all concepts have come to a complete cessation. That is the time where one then can recognize the clear light of deep sleep. When one has trained in this practice, one will not fall unconscious, but conscious mindful awareness will be maintained during that time. Then also, as one is dying and goes on to the Bardo state, one will not fall unconscious, but maintain a mindful awareness. Then immediately one would place oneself inside the view of Mahamudra or Dzogchen without losing mindful awareness. Then it is possible to attain enlightenment in the first Bardo, gaining enlightenment into the Dharmakaya. It is not as though one says, I will attain enlightenment in this life and then I will fly up in the sky. One can then gain enlightenment through one's practice in the process of dying, as one realizes clear light, the nature of one's mind, and thus gains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. If one has not meditated and has not habituated this state, then one will just fall unconscious, like falling into a deep sleep. For example, ordinarily, when we have fallen into this unconscious state and then we wake up, then very slowly we stretch our legs and we stretch our legs, and then we think maybe I sleep another round, and we sleep again. But a practitioner would wake up in that instant. The mind would be very sharp and very clear and would get up immediately. So that is the difference. And also during the time that one is sleeping, if one is not a practitioner, then one would toss back and forward and move like all the sheets and everything back and forward. But if one is maintaining mindful awareness, one would not do such. Rinpoche then just remembered when he was a young child, he said, due to lack of mindfulness, I was tossing back and forward in my bed, and then in the end I fell down on the ground. This shows that there was no mindfulness. So if one in any case maintains mindful awareness, then one can gain enlightenment into the first Bardo in the Dharmakaya. And if not, then one is under this way of ignorance and one has died.
你头不说从从你什么他就这里，你什么他就这里让人继续现在我这里，他常写他吧，这里查怎么了？这里要而且把我去过你，哦嘞，上街特别送，给我们手里送过来，给我那边送过来，哦嘞，这里让我这他没讲话去了，这弄上我来了，多还讲是我们就过到看了。他讲妈妈说，这里有空你车嘛，他的老丈人一点的车对吧？这吹了的那个东西呢，有个人，这样了这里，而且把这出个锅出来这里，别了这把这拿来说别了，好说嘛。你车嘛，他都别了，搞的这，我说你这车嘛，别身上我跟车我多啊，哦，这讲搞的车了。看现在你什么都被你什么都被搞得差不多啊，这嘛你什么他都拉上车对吧？这这种两人就车子了，这个被骗的有来的。这讲有人的生活上以前的场景也被这些有多少，生活上你这把他们觉得咋说呢？这里第二场场景你这把这里，生这些有个原定了这里，你梦到说不把嘎子的。因为长期的我把这个社会容易，这些人我希望他的这里真着重了，可能他就搞起来，
Of course, apart from some very high practitioners, it is very difficult to apprehend and recognize the clear light luminosity of the deep sleep. But there is a special instruction. If you practice the Om Ahom Vacha recitation as you go to sleep, you will have to some extent the ability maybe to apprehend the dream state. Then, although you fall into a deep sleep state, immediately as you wake up, clarify your mind and immediately become sharpen your mind and get up immediately with a clear mind. Then one can attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya after one's death. This instruction was given by Khenpo Munso Rinpoche, and this is something that is easy to accomplish. So before you go to sleep, don't wear too thick of clothes, don't eat too much food, and as you are falling asleep and then waking up, immediately recognize and immediately regain mindful awareness. Anyone who applies great effort in that can accomplish this. If this is accomplished, then there is no need to go into the Bardo state. One may attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. So immediately get up and regain mental clarity. Some other people have a very difficult time getting up in the morning, and they just cannot immediately gain this clarity of mind. But it is of great benefit if we can train in this practice of, as we are awakening, immediately to gain this clarity of mind. That is because the nature of our mind is endowed with Buddha nature. And if we are free from all fixation, then that itself is the Buddha. Due to the qualities of this Buddha nature, we can bring to a complete cessation our afflictive emotions. Through recognizing them upon arising, we can liberate them. This is the unmistaken speech of the Buddha.
Bardo and Rebirth, Tosa, they don't go to jail already. Tell it is a top. Go is a tampote, Tabrabani, tampote, ni Topura Sarsena, the part of Tapon, Tatome, but lots of Fiore. The Kasi in top of Sarmazin and the pipe. Money on the Omahoto di Depata, Plaza Malaspa, Table Tap Jenny, Tetina, Tap Sonatini, the chain of European, Rabna, do the same with yellow Trinity, Trinity, Saturn, Lamsan Trinity, Lampo, Yin, Parma, who are trains of all. Nipalatini, Yam the Sha, Trinity, young to Creole. There is the mother Lamada, Sabada, Kinjila Sopa, or Terra Sopa, Geratopa, Trinity to Creole. Rapata Tata, Kar Sabata, Kinjama Bobona, seeing at the Domegi to Septina. Sabata Kinjis, Pina Simki, Sokia, Nepa, Della Sopata, or they have to paint over some Kinji, Sabata Kinji Kira, Malamina. Taya 15 so big. Long person was on.
That's Shreya Chisom. Yan Hakosom, Ina Yamachi Chisom, Ina Hakosom, Ina Yang Mishanchik, and Butcher Torture, they were Omahu Sum Sam. Nicola Carade Hakosom, those the latest version here and
Latest one.
Frontis some along the hold of
Dodi de Pama, Romanian was Tamashi. Dodi de Bajiba the Tata. So somehow one should not, this somehow a Tamtella. One is empty, flags are not flatty. Due to Jaya make a dream words, they dream about the good Tamset. They didn't want him hard, they but Juche Mepa. Then none of the Patsam Mepa. Juche Mepa, how go less on. They stronger Tamset. This same trip is shut, they didn't mind but the one you want Mepa. Mà đông có chỗ chế chắc đông sông chỗ chế đông thuốc chỗ chế đồ chế sân thì sáng hạ tham sinh cái sáng hạ tham sinh tham ai một cái thế nên tôi rồi đấy 대다 갖고 있는 거지. 근데 당화를 되니까 엄마 홍대 엄대 사지상도 꼬는 거 아들送거 홍대 톡用거는 여러 좀 되더니 사지 탐지 고좀 톡 참여를 해. 대들이 인가로서 또랑 탐지 관에 어래 아무것도 없어. 이 대화는 이게 대화는 매 루메로 매 지금 상황당나 대 이제 계속 공부를 대화 매대 대화 상황당들이 꼭 아직도 온데지 이제 롱지 호반은 롱지 대화 매지 들 대화 매지 롱지 탐송도 이제 대화는 다다래 홍지 세공지 이게 더사다고 말이야 원종업지 나는 족바 온 내바 용화 홍지 설용화 홍수인지 그렇게 tun직종을 될 tun용종 변화 아까 제가 장아 온지하고 지대와를 좀 홍지 색감대 롱수 정보를 대화를 좀 가면 오롱 샤지가 롱지 야대 같은 오롱이 카담 행지를 카담으로 상황처럼 카담 그때는 막 애들 롱도 빠지면서 그때 저도 세가상을 양나더니 되게 된 돌차기 되네 그럼 탐지를 듣니 내가 가르치는 홍지 그때 제 주제가 운동을 라든 공항이죠. 근데 내가 제내한다, 갈아산한다, 회사시한다, 센터들이 공항도 많이 봐. 저기 차트에 좀 막을 담쳐지 되거든요. 말랑머리 공항도 주인으로 와. 제 로카시 공부를 둘이야 보면 나가지 좀 살펴 공부를 내가 로직 이상 공부들이 이만 공항제야를 하고 그러라. 하고 소나. 뭐야? 막고는 죄야. 근데 야 몰라면 아니 시선한테 기타도 그러라.
So we have been introduced on how we are liberated after our death into the Dharmakaya. There are generally three stages of liberation. First, we need to apprehend, if one apprehends the deep sleep state, then without any doubt one will find enlightenment in the first Bardo, in the Dharmakaya. If one is not able to apprehend the deep sleep state, then one can train through the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum or the visualization of the deities and their mantra recitation and gain awareness through these practices. So there are those methods. Ideally, one recognizes the innate nature of mind. One merges one's mindful awareness with any concepts that arise, and one doesn't let other concepts intervene in one's mindful awareness. That is in the ideal case. And secondly, one can meditate on the Yidam deity. And thirdly, one thinks about one's Lama, one contemplates love and compassion and arouses other virtuous concepts. Especially, for example, if one habituates love and compassion, then at night when one is sleeping and one has a dream of sentient beings such as animals or ill people suffering, then when the wish arises to benefit them with a loving and compassionate mind, then this is the best sign of having habituated love and compassion. And after that, I said Rinpoche that there was a request to further explain the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum, and Rinpoche said, to most of my older senior students, I have already instructed the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum. generally in the secret mantra, when one receives an empowerment, one also receives a samaya. The physical samaya is to not let one's mind be separated from the clear appearance, the clear visualization of the deity, to not forget the visualization of the deity. The verbal samaya would be to recite the mantra continuously, and the mental samaya would be to never let one's mindful awareness become distracted. So these are called the three vajras, and it is indeed difficult to accomplish those three vajras. Therefore, there is a special instruction, the Om Ahum Vajra recitation. Om signifies the essence of the Buddha's body. Ah represents the essence of the Buddha's speech, and Hum represents the essence of the Buddha's mind. In this way, the three Buddha Kayas or embodiments are contained within the Om Ahum. And this is a practice that we can do throughout all our activities throughout the day. One should begin a formal morning session, and for that one visualizes that at one's navel is a flame like a battle lamp. This was taught by Lord Jigten Sungren. As one breathes in, one thinks Om. With Ah, one holds the breath at the navel, and this breath, this energy melts into the fire at the navel chakra. Then with Hum, you breathe out. This is nothing that should be actually said, but it is the air that is in the nature of Om Ahum. So for example, one round of Om Ahum would maybe take you half a minute. You breathe in for a few moments, you retain the air with Ah, and then you breathe out with Hum. When you retain the air, retain it gently, and also pull some of the lower wind energies up and contract your anus slightly. Practice in a session for about half an hour. And then after you complete your session, also during all your daily activities, your work and so forth, you can always practice the breathing of Om Ahum continuously, whether you are working or eating or speaking to somebody. If you would never forget the Om Ahum recitation, then that would encompass the speech samaya. If one trains well, then gradually or eventually one will be able to recall the Om Ahum even during one's dream state. Of course, one has to train for some time, maybe for a year. If one possesses great diligence, then maybe it will be possible after 2 or 3 months. Ordinarily, it may take a year, but eventually it will become second nature.
Bardo Tabuni, Seven Nelok Shipati, Seven Nelok Shipati, Seven Nelok Shina, Tata, Saki Doctor, many dog shilly take a Seven Nelok Ram Sarati, or Dig on a couple motions on death of Creole, Dig on a death of not, Dig on me, Nambo and Yumo or Kangshan and Chishiti, Shukchibona, Nambo and Yumo was a top never child in Pena. Chishiti made up and not body. Present up, Sanamta, Numbura, who made the number of made the cherry, get in a child or the Tata was so Chishi Zim, top of children, down Chishiti, so washing your money. Chishi carrying some. Chishi saw more she, Delici, Machi the father. Hajan still was a passing. Seven they looked at the Lama. They did not teaching. Yet I'm the flat in not to feel. 다 홍지나 되게 가르지나 진실들 매직이나 진실 코는 뭐든 고야요 말이 빼나 싹동 나빠다버리 진실 몸이 지게 고 나빠다버리는 고야요 말이 제때는 진실 진짜는 것도 라마는 내가 통이 오 라마 진실도 왜 라마 진실도 그래 대면은 여담 때 왔지 뭐 여담은 거들 남자 진짜나 되게 오지 진피지 지시코랑 차대죠. 지시코랑 것들이 라마들이 당 강기나 라마들 여기서 왔다는 지시라. 지시가 뒤통수에 제주 지시도 어찌 봐야지. 저거도 좀 사진이 아니라 라마 뒤바 예미지. 무슨 짬도 그 도박하는 아주 시키고 또 짬도 막 가지고는 세고도 선데 짬도 막 교사는 가만히 상기에서 가려야 돼. 사실 진실이에요. 진실 가려야 되는 오, 니 짬도 막 쉬우지. 니몇 동물하지. 다른 말로 시당하는 오, 진실 왜 짬도 막 쉬우? 왜 말은 똑같이 하는 말이야. 아, 시당제 저거 말이야. 왜 차도치는 저거 말이야. 왜 차도치를 그렇게 쉽게 되래. 땡기네 상기에 되래. 정말 대시 코란 게 다다 영어보다 나도 좀 탑선지. 근데 기존 대시 코란 띄고 자. 대시 코란은 내로 그치 때라. 근데 대시 코란 서 동나 파다 같은 가사 비유네. 통고요. 된 통화들이 대충 맞지리 시티를 근데 통고요. 내 당부 거를 대시 공원 통로 대충 지를 대시 공원 마시는더니 대시 시티를 말해. 대신 통고 말해. 지체 발로라. 제발은 많이 하고서 말씀도 자서 라마 제저 여담 제저 대표에 싸우는 거 이렇게 정보
So in the first part of state, when we recognize the nature of our mind, for those who can recognize the nature of the mind, those practitioners who are able to sustain the view of Mahamudra or Dzogchen, and those who are able to abide within self-cognizing intrinsic awareness, who are able to remain within that state, whatever concepts or afflictive emotions appear to them, if their mindful awareness is strong, then those concepts and afflictive emotions will be rendered powerless. Mindful awareness is like fire, and the afflictive emotions and concepts are like the fuel or oil that is poured into the fire. When you pour that oil into the fire, that makes the fire even greater, even more powerful. If, on the other hand, one does not recognize one's own awareness, mindful awareness, and many doubts may arise in one's mind, and one may question, what is this mindful awareness? Until one has gained conviction in one's mindful awareness, confidence and recognition, one needs to apply methods to come to that state of recognition, such as thinking about one's lama that one has strong love and devotion for example, or one's yidam deity that one feels very close to, or one can also rely upon the practice of the Ahum breathing. If one then recognizes mindful awareness, then there is nothing that is to be seen. It is a union of clarity and emptiness that abides like the expanse of space. So in order to apprehend one's own mindful awareness, one can think about, recall the Guru, think with strong love about the hidden deity, let its form appear to one's mind. So at any time when one does that, when mindful awareness arises in that moment, that is the essence of mindful awareness. When one, in the Mahamudra or Dzogchen practices, it is said that the Lama and one's awareness, one's mindfulness are inseparable. Therefore, it is of great benefit to recall the Lama and the Lama's awareness. When we have received the refuge vow, before we have received the refuge vow, we go for refuge in the 3 outer jewels. And after we have received the refuge vow, what is the inner jewel? The inner Buddha is our mindful awareness. After I have then received the refuge vow, I would think, oh, I have received the refuge vow, I cannot get angry. It is not appropriate to begin quarreling and fighting. I must not get angry or jealous because I have received the refuge vow. That is the real Buddha. That awareness is the real Buddha. And if one maintains this awareness, then gradually it will become stable and firm. Then when one gains insight, when one directly looks at this mindful awareness, at the nature of this mindful awareness, one will see it is a clarity, an union of clarity and emptiness, and it cannot be seen. It is beyond expression, beyond description, and beyond conception. At that point one has no doubts in one's mind and confidence has arisen, and then one is able to remain within that state. But for beginning practitioners, there are many doubts due to non-recognition of the nature of mindful awareness, not having confidence and belief in it. It is nothing that can be seen. It is therefore a good method to recall the Lama, for example, or one's Yidam deity.
So, top job, Hua got a Sanjay, or Tane to the Sanchok to Bo, Matop, Sanchok to Bo, and change a part, or Danging controls on the Sanchok sent Jacques Sare, didn't only Tatok down to Sanjay, Sanjay can reach Jacob. That is sometimes that and Hako. Tata should down the door going to teach it, that should teach you, teach it a carry Jacob. Teach it is Sanjay, Tata and think I'm the young boy, Mato the Jeppe. Oh, Tata, oh, you mobile men is Sanjay about something to Cassis here. Oh, Tama, you mobile. You know what the problem is Sanjay about Tommy Manga, Tommy Lapio, how go you to control Kill Lapoli? Now you know what does nothing. Sanjay Wahako, you hear your war. Charlotte tapped it. That was to pay a couple of the Yajara. Charlotte tapped the big couple of it. Don't mention a couple of your money. Sanjay Jin is just a mess only. Got it. So similar to the similar dinner. The new mobile rain, the Hedang rain, the Giva rain, the Giva, the shipping Shiba. They maybe kept a Roma or Medina. They only the Shiba take it to do. Shiba does Sanjay, yeah. The Shiba tells the Hedang Cheboli, Hedang, the Jewelry, Hedang Koran Jewelry, yes, on Bergo. Or on the Chinshi, the Ransom, Gayang, Maji, Hedang Koi, Yashuna. Oh. Karma John in a dead man. Young lad over it. Young Jerry, young lad, the lad of Disney. Take the last one, she don't go by, but any she or a new one. Tumbling Yanson, a couple Marie. Teletini, go for the doctor, so many. Bella. Hova did our Nabdores. Ole. Hova Chang me by an Bella, a relatada. Double the same Mambo Chio. Then the Dajik Kidney, taking a Dajik Hop one is. Dajik Hop one is. Then I not get me the Tomba of half of the Sana. Oh, not I knew people getting it on. How the Tomba is, you have already. How the church in the Notorious, not getting me the half of the They don't just in Yamtana, many half already been. 어떤 양들 레인 턱가 턱도 좀 다 때리는데 양들 레인 턱도 강에 막 보자크요리 르타 장진 탐지 배사도 도고도 다 르타 남칼을 놓고 요리 콘도페 르타 거쳐자 도고요리야 촉장 듣고요, 보레자 듣고요, 가디 강해장 보레, 알아봐. 망고를 다 장미로 와. 대통령 내가 가래. 대게다 집어들래. 라버는데 보레자 피 자치 보레스. 배샤 망고도 탑잖아. 다 산이 찍찍다 요 말안 돼요. 어때는 새벽까지도 깽에 요 말도 딱히 나또 요거 딱 문제는 다 산이 제시니 상상니 고마라 사제 심지니 상상 은혜를 내주다 사제가 잡대 뒤치기 잡고 요요 대주 뒤치 되려면 끼적대가 대상지에 좀 변은 뒤치 코랑 사제면은 어래 들리더니 초박을 좀 채로 와 어래 들이 싸움을 들이 내라오래서 무슨 양소나 쭈르지 갖다 쭈르지나 다 쭈르지 뒤치들 공부를 이거는 보고 뭐 시성한테 내라오 뭐 실래 내라오를 공주 이거는 보라
The ultimate and infallible source of refuge is the Buddha, in whom we take refuge from this day onwards until we attain the heart of enlightenment, when we take refuge in the three jewels. From within the three jewels, the ultimate source of refuge is the Buddha. And how does we receive protection from the Buddha? When we come to the juncture of birth and or of life and death, then it is our mindful awareness which provides protection. And how does that happen? This is something that we can experience at all times. Many people may think, they say, well, if I have rid myself of all the afflictive emotions, then one is a Buddha. But it is very difficult to apply the method to bring that about. Actually, it is not that difficult. As the Buddha has said, the method is not to be sought elsewhere. Mind has to look at mind itself. The one that recognizes, that awareness that recognizes, oh, this is afflictive emotion arising, this is anger, this is a virtuous thought, this is an unvirtuous thought. The one who knows all this, that is the Buddha. For example, if strong anger arises, then immediately when one thinks, oh, this is wrong, strong anger has arisen, then this itself is the Buddha. It is mindful awareness holding its own seat. Then if mindful awareness holds its own seat and one just rests in mind's natural state, not even in 15 minutes the anger will disappear, and it may come back again, and again it will disappear. And in this way one is training again and again. If one has recognized one concept of anger, for example, to be empty in self-nature, then one has recognized all concepts to be empty in self-nature. In this sense, the method actually is not that difficult. Lord Nagarjuna has said the root of samsara actually lies within conceptuality. Although samsara is infinite, it has one single root. It is made by our own concepts. For example, on the mountain, if there's many different grasses and bushes, if one realizes the nature of one single grass, one has realized the nature of all of them, the little pieces of like little grass and bushes. And if one has recognized one concept to be empty of self-nature, then one has realized that all the 84,000 different afflictive emotions and concepts in samsara are empty in self-nature. Samsara's nature is emptiness. And this is something that you can experience as you engage in practice. One needs to train and engage in practice. For example, many people train their bodies and they do all sorts of exercise, like playing like a basketball or some ball game, and they work very hard and they endure many hardships, and for which result maybe to get famous or to get a lot of money, but in the long run there will be not much result. So if you look at your mind and you recognize one single concept, then you have recognized the nature of all other concepts. Then when you come to the juncture of being alive and death, then it is this mindful awareness which will provide protection. Mindful awareness is the Buddha. It is the one who interrupts the stream of confusion. And this is something that anybody can practice and experience. One only needs to apply diligence, perseverance in one's meditation practice. The recognition is considerably easy. The habituation of this state only takes a longer time.
Tiri Bardo Tamoni Sangina, Bardo Chukani Sangina, Namka Tabana, Gangamia Chakari, Chakayo Mari, Ore. The Chupi Jasa Sensona, Chupi Jasa Sensona, Teva Teleton, Chimbal Teva Letini, Loco the Trucker Rangi, the matter of the Church. Chang me Banjo, Chang me ba, Rangi, the Bepa the Toval Matipa, Yogi Tata, Check Trucker, the Check Trucker Mari, and Terry, the Mari, your Mari, Trucker, Sula Sound Chooks and some hitches, Sound Chooks and Julia. There's such a trucker say, Jerry or there's in a bed, don't never want to buy a wheel head. Yeah, I took a son, Jim, Matabra Carrier. I'm going to check needs him out. Needs him out. Not ye come. Tanga Tanga, give your check or your ass, or to give it over. Now go, but you tell him, give it over Jerry or not ye come. You got the dark carrier, you don't know. Sunny Shogun, don't me my shadow at them, my carriage. Ya, not a shadow, so easy by my really. Didn't know never not go to Jetsana. Didn't drop it, can't drop you. Drop the tea, you will start at the Sabun. Ya, die, if you do more tringo. Lama tringo, Jelam tringo, and 3 minutes, Jelam, Jelam said you could go up, 3 Jelam Sharon General. Didn't start take a while, David to J. the Parker. Plantation Kana, or go to Priori. Tell it, Rap, Pardo, Walker, Sanki, Pardo Nibani. Niba, Pardo Subani, Parkari, Yadanga Lion, Timbo, dream of dreams of Mato. The lead up, Sermoto, Yella Chabada, Shibatera, so one of the new Mambo China, from now on your body. Chill over that Tokyo. Dropped on the top of Tokyo. I give is a call to Tokyo. You is a call to the Dutch. You are Tarawan Sancho Simply. Data Chile around Tokyo. The young around data, you're in some time around me, some time around your Bayona. There is Sancho Simply Jane. Tanga, he said, Tanga, Giovanni, you are long hungry. Randa Devala Matuka, that's simply Tamki, you told it, or simply Tamki, the Piva that David John Joel, some Sancho simply that they might know. 3 young Rama get a talk of it, Dandy told me to go. They're a thing, Italy. That's a Giovanni in the red. But also about Tokozi.
So when one attains enlightenment in the first Bardo, in the Dharmakaya, then some may think, it is then like space dissolving in space and then nothing is left. This is not the case. Once one has taken the royal seat of the Dharmakaya, depending on the strong love, naturally and free from any effort, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya emanations will appear, like the rays of the sun naturally appear. An infinite amount of Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya emanations will appear, free from any effort and naturally. And one cannot say, oh, this is a true Nirmanakaya and this is not. Whoever possesses bodhicitta can said to be a Nirmanakaya. So free from any effort, those Nirmanakaya emanations appear. If one has not attained enlightenment into the Dharmakaya in the first Bardo, then it is like waking up from a sleep and thinking, oh, I slept, I must practice virtue. So one's mindful awareness is intervened by a concept of virtue, a virtuous concept. That will lead to enlightenment in the second Bardo, in the Sambhogakaya, through remembering the hidden deity, for example. When one has died, then one awakens again, and one thinks, I have died. It is like awakening from a sleep. But the thought of I has arisen, I have died, and this thought of I obscures the nature of one's mind. But then one immediately can recall the hidden deity, such as Tara, or one can recall the Lama. One can have a clear appearance of the generation stage practice, and one's mind will become the deity. Then, through the compassionate power of the deity, the purelance of the deity will become manifest. This is the enlightenment into the Sambhogakaya in the second stage. If one has not cultivated a firm and stable yidam deity practice, then one comes to the third chance to attain enlightenment, into the Nirmanakaya. Then concepts of attachment, craving, other afflictive emotions arise, and the thought of I becomes stronger and further increases the obscuration of the mind's nature. But if one has cultivated some bodhicitta, one has attained some independence, and one recalls bodhicitta, then although one has to take a rebirth again, one takes rebirth as a Nirmanakaya. Also, when one has attained some mindful, like some stability in mindful awareness, like we, for example, sometimes we do have stable mindful awareness, sometimes we don't. So when we have a somewhat stable mindful awareness and we can recall bodhicitta, and we think, now I have died, I will have to take another rebirth, may it be for the benefit of all sentient beings, may it become the cause of all benefit and happiness of all sentient beings. Then one has some little independence, for one's self-clinging has somewhat decreased. Then one will take another rebirth, and that is called the third stage of the Nirmanakaya.
There Jerem the Jesse John, Jerem Song, the Churchiwali tongue, Della Jerry, Jerem something, tell us something you was a Churchiwali tongue. Jiwali the Jerem, the Jesse John, Jerem, the Chilok the John, Jordan Song. Or the Chevrolet such a one of the Jimmy took some Lavua, take Jordan the Jerry. Jesse John, Jordan, Jordan, the Virginia, Jerem Virginia. They thought that Jerem the tree, Jesse John Water, Mugatuali, Tangla, Janet, such a song. The Jerem Naba, yeah, Jerry, Harley. Jerem Naba, the Jenny Jesso, Tata, Naji, Gonji, Docherji, Juji, yeah. Dochele, Chivati Ramji, Chivati River, Pena Tata, also Sempi, the Socha, the Potter, the last of us, Church Saline and Trade for Ramji, the silent Socha, Dominant River, Docherji, Pena Sobi, looking at the Tama Majina, really young, simple Chung River. There are also about that on the Pusherji is Pusherji. Shit, American, you're married. American, she got away.
Yes,
That's how I say it. Who does my she got away? 다걸 추마장 문나리 저거데 도시지 있어 대진에 이제서 들이 다 지와니 받을 토마토니 마셔도 나봐 진도 봐 지와 대신 이 상쪽 생산 되려야 되는 마디게 되고요. 때렸더니 근데 바도니 맹제도 보고지 바도 유리테라 족 다다면이 남기요 말이 직계가 족 매나야 동이 이제 같이 장을 족 매봐라 초와 두시 두지 남시지 이제다 요래 족 다다면이 요 말이 속된 교황도 오래 오래 다다 같이 라다다 다들 리드 나와 저거요래 그래야 다다 같이 송진이 껴서만 루칸데 이거 뒤 나와 잡고요래 근데 나와 잡다 다 담으라 마고 속여라 너게도 보고서
Then it is said that when the way we take rebirth is likened to the generation stage, and the way we die is likened to the completion stage, when one dissolves into the other. In terms of taking rebirth, there are 4 different types of taking of rebirth. Taking rebirth in a womb, in an egg, through heat, and miraculous rebirth. For example, taking rebirth through heat and moisture. For example, little animals, they naturally, instantaneously are born. For example, when we don't clean our body very well and we sweat a lot and we don't wash, then we will be infested by like human lice. They naturally just appear due to the heat and moisture of our body. But in any case, when it comes to taking a rebirth, although the thought of I has arisen again in the Bardo state, when one merges it with bodhicitta, one still can attain a favorite incarnation. In the Bardo state, we do not have the 5 aggregates, but we have it is called the aggregates of the 4 names. Although we don't have a body anymore, the suffering that we experience is one and the same, as though we had a body. We still have the other 4 aggregates of sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. Although there is no body, there is sort of a appearance of a body. The first few weeks of the Bardo state, we have the perception of our old body that we left behind, and the last few weeks of the Bardo state, we have the perception of the next body that we are about to take on in our next incarnation.
아, 예담도 따와 진 좋고 요 말이 술이 신차 대담지 진나. 대 차단했다고 했더니 대담지 깨잖아. 대담에 깨 운이 되나 했더니 나한테나 요지. 이 값이더니 같이 잡고 롱 잡고 되라도 인정한 치고 요래. 라왕비 봐 내가 놓고 그러지. 지우고 또 놓고 그러라. 잡고 놓고 치와나 이거 라왕비 봐. 자고 또 롱는 그러라. 잡고 놓고 치와나 이들이 요래서. 오늘 라왕비 봤다. 제가 정상 차바다 보는 들이 세와 들이 롱만 아무나 다 때라서 봤더니 강도 땅 거라. 들이 롱발로 빼지 도와 측도 도는 측도 봐는데 나한테 되나 예다가 다에 소지다 지다에서
네, 그것이 나들라요. 스타부터라 가봐도 그래서 이게 거기로 그때 가르게 다게
깨지 도고가 되냐와 포바 동바 저처럼 와도 포바 동바 남미 도고도 마들라요 저런다나 소데 내가 중국어가 차다잖아 대사만이 또 강남배가 중국어나 내가 항상 같이 가사 쳐고요가 어디면은 그 가도들이 대사라나 쳐고요 되게 나왔잖아 들이 간네 도고 보고 깨자오는데 야발을 지금 다 해서 참아를 동부 근데 예다를 지었다라 로바 드라이브 또와 매치 또와 저기는 가야만 소화돼 예다를 지었다 제가 지었다라더니 뭐 타는 쪽으로 변해 깜빡 나와서 오래 나와셔서 야발 지나 딱 그도 가지고는 뭐도 타는 쪽으로 깜빡 나와서 되나 샤비 로가라 야발 지었다 해서
나랑게 수고들
라고 수고들 딱 가서 간다고 뭐도 보네 뭐가 깜빡 나와서 뭐도 보네 아직까지 간 참고해 봤더니 나와셔서 해서 생각을 보고 조동이 살죠. 그러니까 차와자로 나 영명 참아 요래다. 그래. 차와자니 이 아마리 이야기하니 이 가공송 그만자로 소동으로 소 가서 소동을 때 차와자로 했더니 왜 까봐나지 뭐 당도 어쩌고 다나 니고 마동저 아마나 고야 토보죠 다창 들이 도둑게 돼도 다창 나와리 저 셔링을 아마 들으라고 봐 나와들이 셔도 된다 뭐 당도 깜바는 뭐야 들이 차들이 좀 나와서 마셔고 있잖아 들이 슬라다 플라미 사다 사미 들을 지나 냐나기양 고티라고 하지 냐나기도 고티라 가서는 테라도 있는 나왔잖아 사미를 지와인스 사미를 지어다 아래에서 저희야 때다 랭이바 마보마사바 마자그라 비는 사이를 지는 저희 속직 나와라는 거 저거 까보를 저거 보를 그래야지 뭐지 깜빡깜빡지는 거리 나와 착수를 했어. 저거들이 수학까지 기회를 내도 되고 좀 매력이 깜빡살로 또 보여라. 제가 수학가 매일을 지나. 다시 뒤에서 겨우 찾아와. 이제 봐도 좀 나서 막 사이에서 매일을 지어라. 어다 됐다 다 망고 요리다 좋다. 당시 바디 뒤로 치면은 요리 고치 많아 네 수자로 고치고 저저 되나 약고 다지 수자로 고치고 바도 저저로 봐 바디 대비나 참아 요리 돼 제가 때네 다다 성장체를 빼 약고 요리지 하고서 어야 내가 용용 제거를 이 요리들 락탄들이 아니 마보라면 소리가 나와 me sata many pachichi pare pela chita your gavotila your gavocho nawa shara sonwa chi ma te lopa chipo to no nawa shara go so mira tan lo cha che go phama ku se chi ga le sa te shara mira me chi ina ter ta che so go ra.
Did you get him somewhere? Did you get him somewhere?
Really?
Yeah. So if one has not completely purified all one's affective emotions, then depending on whatever affective emotion is predominant, one will take rebirth in any of the 6 realms of samsara. For example, as one is wandering in the Bardo state, and as a sign of being reborn in the hell realms, certain appearances will arise, such as being in an area, a country with blazing fire, burning, is a sign of being reborn in the hell realms, or coming close to an empty cave and hearing the sounds of those that one has a strong attachment to, like one's friends or one's parents, those one had a strong attachment to, and one hears them crying out saying, I am here. Again, one will not be able to remember the hidden deity, and one will give rise to concepts of attachment and will go to that place. That is a sign of being reborn in the hell realms. Another sign, or generally when one is wandering through the Bardo state, one, without any choice or independence, is drawn, depending on one's karma, into a certain direction. It is like one's consciousness is like a feather of a bird being carried away by the winds of one's karma, floating back and forward. One experiences great fear, terrifying appearances arise before one. There is rain, hail, darkness. One is naked. When one then hears one's close ones crying, "Come here, I am here," and one goes there, one will be reborn in the hell of the Shalmali tree. As a sign of being, another sign of being reborn in the hell realms is that one's body appears to be upside down, one's head's down and one's legs sticking up. Rinpoche says, I have experience with that actually, and he says, believe me, I have experience with everything. So one time I was a young child, I had a fever and I was thirsty, so I stole some yogurt from my mother and drank it. Then I had the appearance, it appeared to me as though my head would be down and my legs would be sticking up, as though I would be upside down. And I was crying to my mother and I said, I'm upside down. And my mother said, you must be close to death, I'm sitting completely straight. But this was not the experience that I had. So this is a sign of hell realms. A sign of being reborn in the realms of the hungry spirits is if one comes to a country with a lot of smoke and one cannot see anything. A sign of being reborn in the realm of the jealous gods is that one is moving forward, like straight forward, like a fish moving forward. If one has not accumulated too many non-virtuous actions and one has some virtuous propensities such as generosity or moral ethics, but one still possesses a good deal of pride, that one will be reborn in the God realm. And a sign of that is that one appears in a white colored country and one is walking straight up just like a human being. Also a sign of being reborn as a human being is quite similar. One also proceeds through a white-colored country. But being reborn as a human being, one has attachment, and one then sees one's future parents in union, and cultivates attachment and thus is reborn as a human being. There are many different other signs of the different rebirths, and there is a book on the Bardo that is translated into English by Garchen Rinpoche, and it would be very advisable if you could study this very well.
되게 강의로 다 망고 요리 다 강의로 다 답을 가르쳐 거예요. 이제는 진시 되게 싫어. 이제 다다 송제 무서도 공적보다는 나보다 유모모 왕들 마셔나 제대로 나왕 요리를 빠라왕 톱도 대탐시 출발하는 게 뭐라나기 또 톱이요리 어레 장상티 아레 예담티 다와티 라마티 대탐시 제인도 다다 나왕 톱고리 다다 유모모 나왕 톱 바도 나왕 톱고요리 다다 나왕만 톱나 들이 바도네 나왕 톱고요 말이 제디 유모모 가지고 대샤용요리 sempre 유모모 왕도 쇼트네 유모라는 카도를 도와도 샤용요리 대다로 상로도 들이다다 남상 좀 제도 공자도 요거요라 남선에도 요거라.
So generally there are many different signs of the different realms that you can be reborn in, but in any case, what that is inspiring us is to engage in the practice of mindful awareness for as long as we are alive. When through our practice we do not fall under the power of afflictive emotions and concepts arising, we will gain independence of awareness. Then we will be able to recognize and realize all those to be a confusion, like a dream. When one is able then to remember the hidden deity, or one is able to place one's mind within the view or recall the Lama, then at this point one can gain already independence. If one has attained independence of awareness at this point, then one will be able to have independence in the Bardo state. If one doesn't have any independence now, one will not have any independence in the Bardo state. The self-life of the afflictive emotions naturally will make the 6 realms appear to you. Like each of the afflictive emotions, color will become manifest in the form of the 6 realms of samsara. Hearing this should inspire one and give rise to the wish to engage in practice.
이 몸상 앞지 좀 제름 제바다 콜로 대표 제름되다 가담바 결국 바당 가담이 제름 제바다 몸상 앞지 좀 그러면 제름 공부요래 그때 가이 공부요래는 당내 되니 사족선 때 자요 들이라는 거야 라왕 톱 맞아 되나 사족선 보제 때를 때네 다른 게 지와 이게 내가 이거 파마대 생을 샤요 노래 파마니가 때문에 좋아해서더니 얘를 차고 가면 람상들이 파마니가 좀 홀로들 또 영향이 야물 라마 영향이 상 지금 라마 영향 빈 거래 아니 마게 가상는 것들이 틀릴까 말 테니까 내마다 다워지 되냐 통오 내마다 다워지 돈이다 기지이랑 이 인자 내마다 다월 건 전에 뒤반은 다 랑은 남시대 라왕 밀고 잡아대니까 쇼고요. 쇼고감이 잡아 많이 봐. sepki tamki nga pipa tongda nga sanchok tsambe jiwa lawa sao nga sanchok tsambe da tsambe tani nga la chokna tani sanchok tsambe jiwa lingi yore pena tata jiran tamke tere tangbo yaye khan kongbo yore tani ti tanga nyamata dawa ding kongbo yore nyamata dawa ding ti tanga tani tata 사원 공부요래 원래 사원도 따로서 다 보고 납시 잡아오래 나발치 봐야 볼까면 사원나 저나 진짜 까버리라 대한 뒤식이 성거요래 뒤식 정도 붙여야 그래는 파마가 캄캄한 야통 나선 니마다 다베티 제 돈이도 굉장히 돈이 봐 근데 랑은 납시 되게 홍상도다 딱바르더니 제루를 포마라 홍역 공주들 다 기체 보여래 가지나 여기 홍련전들이 파면 안에 쇼쇼잖아. 들이 진실이 큰을 오고요. 산속선 나가니지. 밤에 거라 이게 차고 방는 오고요 말이야. 아래. 들이들 사용 삼층 때 어제 쪼는 산지 탑재 살았지. 섭지 탑재도 관장들이 보면 대장들이 다 갈래 파마가 보고 그런 말을 보고 차들이 보고서 리용서도 봤더니 리용서도 봤더니 많이 다 지용으로 봐. 다 지원이로 돼야 돼. 그래서 이 종원이 지름.
So regarding the way we take rebirth, just like in the generation stage practice, is explained in 5 steps or the 5 actual enlightenments, 5 stages of the generation stage or way we take rebirth. If one has cultivated some bodhicitta and has cultivated or attained some mental independence, then in the Bardo state, when the appearance of one's future parents will become manifest to one, then immediately, instead of falling into this way of craving, one would visualize the hidden deity, such as Chakra Samvara or the Lama Yapyom in consort appearance. Then immediately, as one remembers that, when then the white and the red drops of the parents meet together, one will understand those drops to be in the essential nature of emptiness and compassion, and one would visualize its pure form being a sun and a moon disk. So then one visualizes the sun and the moon disk. Then with this independence, one enters the womb of the parents with the aspiration that as I'm entering this womb, may this incarnation be for the benefit of all sentient beings, and may I cultivate bodhicitta for all beings. Then one will take an incarnation as a bodhisattva. So first, in the generation stage practice, there is the celestial palace. Secondly, there is the visualization of the sun and the moon. Thirdly, on top of that, we visualize the seed syllable of the deity, which represents our own consciousness, which we visualize also in order to maintain mindful awareness. So when the white and the red drops of our parents emerge, if we immediately remember the sun and the moon seeds and our consciousness meditates on the syllable home, for example, then that is then we will carry this mindful awareness within the womb. This is a very important point of the generation stage practice. Then we will carry the twofold bodhicitta with us, and we will not fall under the power of heedlessness. Then from the womb syllable, the deity becomes manifest with all its hand implements through the light emanating from the seed syllable, which is then the manifestation of the actual Buddha or deity. This is then the stage where we have taken the womb of the parent, and then we have actually established a body. A body has grown in the womb. So this is the way we take rebirth, explained through the generation stage yoga.
공바 제보 밀려요. 라고 대바다 사족 생물 보지. 대서 줄라오나. 애들이 주니 봐도 어제. 다 무슨 되는 좀 나와라. 다 자리에 나와 잠깐 저거 요리. 다 되는 대당 그러니까 주니 봐도 좀 식구사 담지 찾게 요리. 주니 봐도 봐도 이 말을 봐. 봐도 담고 봐도 담고 등차 등이라고 또 게다 조금도 미치스면 뽑아가 등차 등이나
아니 시바 파도를
대라 주니 봐도가 대리더니 바보라 시바라 토토기 차 다다 시바라 담지는 안게 주라 되나 어레 홍강 후보 홍강 김치가 나오기도 접대요 대답지 new body, Madabacabra, new body, get a water child, Tapacabra, and flying body. Did you got the days of Santok Sona Tet and the flash out of me? Jawaranga, three Shawasha, three Tosha, three Rekal so adoption. Purchase of which a hard port of a dama, 3 months of Sukuri. Shawata Provisha, which you need part also. Three key part of the Torma to Tata to Soba part of the Soba part on the man Chambu. Soba part on Chamata, Kiwadi to the Dama, take over the Pena. Tata Jessic, you want Jeremy. Three Dama, Kanya Mipet Bella, Tamarbata. The Giwaya Lapsibo, Giwaya Lapsibo, drop Matapata, 3 Kazadina, Party of the Pardo Theatre. You're the boy, Champion. Benedictine, Denny, sort of Sete, Madone. 2 money for Chua. You're right. 2 money for Chua, just only Sete, Madone, Mador de or Richina. The Pador there, Tata Theatre, Tajamba, the Tosa, some theatre owner, Madone, Tatana, Kani Meva, or Bota. Neta, Lonjuta, Elasopotachi, Ganimeva, or Tricha, their theory. Trita Tashidanki comes with that, they didn't love something, Yava and how I shadow worry. Tatapena Seva would mention, Gandusona, Tama, Topola, and Chadi or one. What the Padoli tea, Sevati is good, they don't do some so fast. It was when you can come to Sevaki, certain, Don Martellas, Muaji. Get out of Koyorwa, the everything in the Padority, the Deva to Shadow. Koto, Nets of Koyority, the Deva to Panda, Padorita, the Hinjita, Mamma no Yorwa, set out the Tadority, it is around your money. It means also around maybe Jolan Gorva. The store around Tomatoti. That is the one all of the Tishitam. Sancho Center, Tishi Rawa Tomato teacher by the me to put a Tishi. They are they knew that the Leka kind of jet for your opinion. She will not show by on a kind of Dohura Rawan Chibomen. Rawan Chibomen, Rawan Tommy Chuka Sanjeva, 3 local Sanjeva, Papa Don Sancho Center control the tape of the Matana. 这样的在国外玩吧，那人是真的，这是那保起不是吧？我打家人了，真是的，老妈一做，真是的，你这个也得是那个经济。
So if one has gone on to the Bardo state, and one possesses some little devotion and bodhicitta, then as one is wandering in the Bardo of Dharmadato, then the peaceful and wrathful deities will appear to one. So generally Rinpoche says we are wandering in the Bardo for about 7 weeks. So then the peaceful deities will appear to us. The peaceful, like if we are like a more pure karma or have not under the power of afflictive emotions, then naturally those pure appearances of deities and their pure lands will appear to us, such as the 5 Dhyana Buddhas or peaceful or wrathful deities. If we are of impure karma and if we are afflicted by negative emotions, then the 6 realms of samsara will appear to us. But if we have this pure karma and the deities will appear to us and we supplicate the deity, then we can be reborn, or the appearance of the Pure Lands will become manifest to us, and then we find liberation. If one does not find liberation in this Bardo of Dharmadato, one continues to wander on into the Bardo of becoming. And there one needs the instructions that we have just received of taking a rebirth, the generation stage practice. If one has not received those instructions and one has some virtues and some non-virtues, deeds that one has committed, then it is very possible that one may wander in this Bardo state for a long period of time. Also, sometimes when one has not lived one's full lifespan, or one has died an untimely death, then it is possible that one may have to stay in this Bardo state until the lifespan would have come to an end. Then if one has cultivated some bodhicitta and generosity, then one will experience little difficulties in that state. One will meet with friends, one will have a pleasant dwelling place, one will have some wealth, one will not experience many difficulties. But on the other hand, if one has given rise to anger, then immediately the perception of hell will become manifest. If one has been a loving person, then wherever one goes, one will meet with harmonious friends. Then even in the Bardo state, one will live in a pleasant dwelling place. Those, for example, are the outcome or the result of actions that we did, such as smoke offerings or the offering of dharmas and so forth. Those root of virtue will then lead to the pleasant appearances of the Bardo state. But if we have continuously given rise to anger or jealousy, then the terrifying appearances of the Bardo will become manifest without any independence. Then, without any choice, we will have to take a rebirth in these three lower realms. If the main instruction is on what it all depends on is whether or not we have gained independence of mind. The main instruction, therefore, is to cultivate bodhicitta and to maintain mindful awareness, to gain independence of the mind. Otherwise, one will be carried around by the winds of karma like the feather of a bird. If one has attained this independence of mindful awareness and bodhicitta, one may gain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. If one has cultivated devotion into the three jewels, and if one is able to remember the deity, each time one is able to do that, one will receive the blessings of the deity. So these are the instructions on how we take a rebirth again.
돈이 바카는 저런 때문에 있잖아. 돈을 내로 사자집이 내로 대주도 그거래. 별 저런 정도 라마 주고 좋아서 땅나. 다 당원 사직하고 습지들이 나빠가고 초진 빼 망보시 빼라. 공부요래 빼라. 어래. 나사 파산 강조 공부요래. 대답지 좀 잘더니 고토 담지 철드는 라마를 듣는데 어래. 라마를 듣니 다 무슨 이담 제는데 보나 고토 이자에 강상게 돼서 야염이라 튼 염야브라 튼 야브토고 홍을 튼 근데 조름 대셔도 그치 따지나 고로게 가려야 되는 고대가 도움이 내려오면 고대가 추탐지 제가 망나요 오고 다도 오고도 대벌도 갔다 와는 요 말이 내가 다 맞고 세번한 길에 사자 정보는 나 샘도 타지 샘이 동벌 타지 동그 다다 타말 바탕전 도와도 다지가 와게 내다 유모하게 다감지 이서 다 망고서 차대요 했지 다과 사지가 살아 오 주스도 사지에 담도 정과 즉 대양 취지 연대 저기 나도 생사 동남 갔다고 저 석세분 내놓고 통로 오 사지에 담지 대를 참을 뒤 동시에 내가 망고지 차대고요 타톡도 사지 탐지 사지 즉 통로인데 대양 동반이는 저기요 지 동시바탕 내로 동시바랍 우리 생기 탐지가 좀 저러고 또 봐야 люди 좋아 맞아 참아 템들이 좀살 납치 생각을 템 납치 때문에 동반이라 납시 동반이 텀들어가 홍역 나다라 텀 나다 차진 조건 뭐 백바 할 줄 알아. 뭐 홍지도 때 나다 텀 그것도 접대 나갈 봐. 매발 공부를 납시대 문에잖아. 요 말봐. 요거도 대박도 봐. 요 말. 나오 그냥 봐도 봐. 매일은 그 말을 심사 동성도 싸우는 게 동바는 게 싸워야 될 때. 뭐도 치마도 봐. 동나 요 매가야 랍하고 말봐. 지도로 사자 집에 내로 돈을 줘 봤어. 돈도 내로 콜대니가 동바니 뭐지 돈도 봤다. 됐다 마도 봤지. 내가 따라는 철업라 배잖아. 내가 좋아 배잖아. 좋아 좋은지 돈이 과도 대학은 미적 차이야도 매대 루차 참는데 매대 루는 매리더라. 무슨 매대 루는 매대 루 말에 샘리 매대 샘이 로래 야 샘까지 때 소시 샘을 적대 샘 따와는 더비 알고 말라 나빠다는 매파마에 코드에 그게 있지 요파마에 자외 담아서 요새는 사제가 통로 말했지 매일 코드에가 샤요 요리 거기다 와대 하고서 어때 예비에 다 다시 그런 셔츠를 제럼 도는 요 제로 요 셔츠를 와 하고서
So this for the generation stage, and then as for the completion stage, which is likened to the dissolution at the time of our death, this is a very important point, a very essential point. When we engage in the practice of Mahamudra, when everything dissolves, then this is what is meant with the dissolution stage. For example, if we engage in a ritual practice, we visualize sentient beings, the refuge tree, the guru, and so forth. And in the end of the practice, one dissolves back into the other. First, the celestial palace dissolves into the yab, the yum dissolves into the yab, then it dissolves into the lama, and in the end, everything dissolves. That is the dissolution stage. The reason why we engage in the completion stage practice is to understand that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, although they are so extensive, in actuality they have no inherent existence, they have no reality to them. They are a concept made by the mind, and the mind's nature is empty. Ordinarily, we are overpowered by self-clinging, and there becomes a multitude of self and others. If we purify this state, then we understand that the Buddhas of past, present, and future, although there is a multitude, are essentially one in nature. So when we look at that nature, the nature of mind, it is a union of clarity and emptiness, abiding like the expanse of space. If one looks at that nature, one understands that within that nature the Buddha is contained. So one ultimately realizes the single nature of mind. Although there is a multitude of appearances, essentially it is of one essential single nature. So when one understands this at the time of dying, when one dissolves into the other, it is like the completion stage where one of the visualization dissolves into the next one. Everything has, for example, dissolved into the hum syllable, and then there is the nada on top of the hum syllable. Everything dissolves into this nada, and in the end it becomes very subtle and very fine, and in the end it becomes nothingness, and one remains within a state free from reference. This is likened to the state when at dying our consciousness then dissolves into emptiness. This consciousness has no inherent existence. and yet it cannot said to be non-existing, for it is a union of clarity and emptiness. The nature of clarity is emptiness, and the nature of emptiness is clarity. It can neither said to be existing, nor can it said to be non-existing. When we realize the nature of mind, Mahamudra, we realize that both samsara and nirvana are empty of self-nature. So this is the purpose of the generation stage practice. For example, now we take one single person and we say, this body, this is the person. Very easily we can establish that this body is not the person. Then one could say, oh, then this person is the mind. But if you look at the mind, you can't reach it. It abides like space. And yet it cannot said to be existing, for it has not been seen, not even by the Buddhas. It cannot said to be non-existing, for all of samsara and nirvana appear within this mind. It is the view of the middle way. So this is the instruction of the birth and dying, which is likened to the generation stage and completion stage practices.